Blam.
What's up, hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Pod Snipe Celly. My name is Dan Bradley. Alongside me tonight, Joel Ferdino. Joel, we have so much hockey to talk about tonight that we didn't even want to roll the video open. We just wanted to jump right into our hockey coverage tonight. It has been a bananas day with all of the trading going on, all of the prospect talk all over the board. How you doing, buddy?
I am great. It's been a little while. Been over a week. I obviously was in Vegas. No, I did not get to celebrate or find the cup, but was in Vegas. Didn't see the cup. I actually missed it by not even a day. The whole parade and rally thing was like Saturday night, and I flew in Sunday morning, so I barely missed it. Have you started?
Yeah, you were that close to being there for the show, the festivities.
Quite frankly, my thing is I would have liked to have gotten, by the way, there's our first big thing. I'm doing great. Had some vacation. Got over a cold that came after the vacation because, drinking and eating and gambling and not sleeping makes for an unhealthy body.
I want to ask, what was the vibe like in Vegas? Just your experience there. We got people in the chat saying, congrats, Joel.
Thank you.
You started celebrating
Thank you.
tomorrow. It's Bedard season. It's Taylor Hall season in Chicago.
Happy Bedard week to all those who celebrate.
Yeah, it's going to be really funny when I can't even say it.
Yeah, don't. You know what? Go ahead. It's the last day.
I started joking because I was going to try and pull the Fantilli joke one more time.
It's the last day.
I think that's an omen. It's time to shut that one down. It's going to be Bedard to Chicago. I hate it so much. I'm sick to my gut that's where it's going to go. Yeah, see, there's HP right on cue saying Fantilli week.
Yeah. No, the vibe itself, the vibe for that team out there since their incarnation has been excitement. It's always Vegas is just fun. As you know, they are my second team, but not for the reason of like the fair weather fanness. I have a bit of a connection to Vegas. My mom and I do. We go every year too now as a result of that. So once Vegas got a hockey team and it was their first professional sports team, I was like, yeah, that's my second team. It's like the Islanders to you.
Yeah, the Islanders have kind of been a second team for me for a while. That's almost fallen off a little bit now.
I was going to say, you're nothing like New Yorkers at all. So which is a good thing. That's a compliment.
it's kind of a weird vibe. I like the team a lot. And being now that I'm in Ohio, kind of following the Columbus Blue Jackets a bit, we get some of the, my wife grew up just outside of Annapolis, Maryland. So she is a Washington Capitals fan. So we support more than one team across the board on this show.
Exactly.
It's by the Vegas hat and the Blackhawks jersey that
I know.
It feels wrong. It looks wrong.
I'm
still going to support it.
I would never be the guy doing this at like a Hawks Knights game. Our home opener this coming. The schedules got released today too. It was a busy day. Our home opener is against the Knights, and I would not be donning this outfit. The hat would not be on my person at that game. The Hawks are still first and foremost. But to answer your question with the vibe, and you're gonna hear me rank something ahead of Chicago here. So I knew I wanted to get a hat when I was out there. Thought about a jersey, but believe it or not, it was actually really hard to find like a team store with name jerseys that you don't have to have them like physically sew on themselves. I didn't feel like dealing with that. So, maybe I'll get a Jack Eichel jersey at some point down the road. But the vibe itself was amazing. So many different jerseys. It was super hot, so not many people are going to be wearing sweaters, but a lot of different hats, t-shirts, so many different Stanley Cup t-shirts and hats and such. No, it is not a Fanatics hat. It's actually a brand you've never heard of that I've never heard of either. I'll take it off and tell you the brand. It must be like a local West thing. I've never heard of the brand before. It is not Fanatics though. But so what we did, my mom and I walked from our hotel. We stayed at the Mirage, And we walked from there to T-Mobile Arena. I've never seen T-Mobile Arena. I wanted to go see it. I wanted to go see, the leftover. The stage was still there from the rally and the watch party they would do outside. Their arena alone, Fanatics does suck. Their arena alone is insane. And I wasn't even inside. I was just outside. But the cool thing, and I won't get too into it because you just have to see it. When you're walking off the strip, and it's just off the strip, it is technically on the strip, but there's this little like cobblestone road with a strip of bars and shops and restaurants that leads to T-Mobile Arena. And it's so sick. It's like a Western hockey paradise, in my opinion. We stopped at like the hockey bar. It's like this, I forgot, it's the beer something. It's the beer something. And it's just a bunch of Golden Knight stuff inside, but then they have this wall of all the Western Conference teams and then all the Eastern Conference teams logos. And it was such a sick bar. I got to find the name of it, but the vibes were awesome. I mean, it was really cool to see, and all the different billboards and like, virtual big signs all up on the hotels and stuff on the strip all had the like, congratulations, Mark Stone holding up the cup, Aiden Hill kissing the cup, stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun, man. It was cool.
That's awesome. I'm glad you got to go. I'm sorry you couldn't be there while the games were actually going on.
Just missed it.
Immaculate vibes. I mean, you just missed it, but also like Vegas won 9-3.
I meant just missed the parade. I missed the parade. I didn't just miss the series. That series wasn't going 7.
Yeah, no, that was a thorough handling of Florida.
If it wasn't evident to everybody, congratulations to the Golden Knights who won the Stanley Cup.
yeah. Let's get the banner up. There it is. Congrats to Vegas, 2022 Stanley Cup champions. Congrats as well to the Hockey Hall of Fame class for this year as well. Caroline Ouellette, Henrik Lundqvist, Pierre Turgeon, Tom Barrasso, Mike Vernon, Ken Hitchcock, and Pierre Lacroix all going in.
LaCroix?
A little surprised that once again, no Alexander McGillney. It's still a crime that he is not in the Hall of Fame. I really hope that one of these days he's ultimately able to get in. But for me, the two really big standouts in this class are the first two names on that list there, Caroline Ouellette and Henrik Lundqvist. Ouellette has won just about everything that you can possibly win in the women's game. Gold medals across the board. Was a star at University of Minnesota Duluth. Henrik Lundqvist, the king, the person who made me want to be a goalie. Of course, that never really turned into anything, but
arguably top 5 player to never win a Stanley Cup. Actually, not even arguable. I would put him in my top 5 players to never win a Stanley Cup.
Top 5 goalie, absolutely. Top 5 player, that list gets tough. That's going to be an off-season talker for us at some point.
Of course, and we are officially in the off-season.
We are. We're not going to talk about it tonight.
No.
We, of course, have way too much stuff to get to from there. But we did have to congratulate the Hall of Fame class for this year. Joel, I don't want to delay this any further.
Either. In fact, I'm going to change.
Chicago Blackhawks. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, make your change.
I was just going to say I'm making my hat change from congratulating the Golden Knights to now I need a new Blackhawks hat, so we'll just go with Goose Island to represent Chicago because now we're switching tunes.
There you go. With the first pick in the Snipe Celly mock draft, the Chicago Blackhawks select Bismack Biyombo, center from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. A 6'8" center with a 7'1" wingspan, a just unbelievable reach.
Hold on. You made the joke last show.
Two-way player across the board. We got a new audience. New show.
I mean, fine.
People might have missed it. People might not have tuned in last week.
All right. You mean 2 weeks ago. But
whatever our last show was.
But really quick, do we want to do a quick before I will do it, I will offer up my lovely just getting over a cold voice to explain the rules of what we did. But before we get to that, do we want to talk about some of these trades that have happened in the last couple of days?
We have so many to get through. I made
Oh,
banners
no.
for a couple,
I mean,
and
just
they kept rolling through.
slide through.
I'll hit a couple of the big ones here.
no.
We had the Avalanche bringing in Ryan Johansson at 50% retained from Nashville for Alex Galchenyuk.
It's a very weird move, but okay.
A little bit. Well, and then today Colorado doubled down. They shipped out Alex Newhook for some draft picks along the way there.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, had to mention Taylor Hall. And
I am so excited.
You're ecstatic about that.
I really am. Like, look, I won't talk much. I will be very quick. I already know what I'm going to say. So Ian Mitchell and Alec Regula needed a change of scenery. Alec Regula was a little surprising that we gave up a little quick, but there's way too many defensive prospects that are hopping both of them in the depth chart already. So Ian Mitchell never really looked to be getting to that point that we all thought he might. He himself was basically the final Jeremy Colleton screw up that was still in the system. And yeah, I saw the rumors. You got my text. HP, you're canceled. You're canceled. Get him off the screen.
One other one we got to talk about here, Tyler Toffoli.
Oh.
This one came in like a half
hour.
It came
in like 30 minutes ago.
In the room ready to go live. Just came down. Toffoli to the New Jersey Devils for Igor Sharangovich and a 3rd-round pick. Just a fantastic get for the Devils. Joel, I'll let you finish your thoughts there on the Hawks trade, Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno.
Oh, yeah, that was just – I just saw I saw the Elliot Friedman tweet, and I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. I'm thinking like maybe a Mike Riley or obviously a salary dump, which it ended up being anyway. But and I remember, I think I might have quoted it on Twitter, or I had talked to we have a mutual friend who's a big Bruins fan. I was talking to him about it, and I was like, I mean, Taylor Hall is what's going on in my dreams, but that's not going to happen. Literally 10 minutes later, it comes through that Taylor Hall is coming to Chicago, and I was like, what?
Minnesota Wild Talk chiming in to say at this point, just go get Cat from the Sens.
You have no idea how much I would love to, but it sounds like the rumblings are he'll end up in Detroit. No, not because he's from Michigan, but that's just what I'm hearing.
Detroit has the picks and prospects where they could make it work. They have the cap room to make it work.
Exactly.
They've got the need for somebody like DeBrincat. It would make a lot of sense. But yeah, let's get into this mock draft.
All right.
We are fully bracing for this to be at least a 90-minute show tonight, if not maybe pushing 2 hours. We'll see how time goes.
Exactly.
But Joel, our big rule for this one, first and foremost, was we don't want this to be so chalky that it's like every other mock draft that you're seeing out there. We went a little off the board with some of these picks. We kind of switched things up from what I think could happen tomorrow night. And some of them, it's like, I just want to play this out and see what happens if I put this player here. How does that make the rest of the board fall? And but we tried to keep it pretty reasonable within those parameters as well.
Yeah. So basically, we're going to get going. Welcome to the Snipe Celly mock draft. Now, as Dan said, the main rules we stuck to with this, it's a mock draft, but it's kind of mixed with a fantasy draft in a way too. So how that works is that what we did is instead of Dan and I both doing 1 through 32 in round 1, I took the odd number teams and Dan took the even numbered teams. So basically,
with one switch along. Well, no, I guess we had 2 switches along the way.
Yeah, there's a switch along the way.
Because the Wild were picking 21.
Yeah,
and it's not that I don't trust you to pick for the Wild.
No. We
I would want to step on your toes, and especially knowing you're going to take Adam Fantilli, knowing you're going to take Bismack.
My God, man!
Anybody but Bedard.
You're canceled.
Please, dear God, let something funny like that happen.
No, because Kyle Davidson wants to keep his lovely, cushy GM job.
Yeah, I bet he does. It's a good gig when you can get.
So what we did, to Dan's point, around the early 20s, you'll see the whole odd even thing switch. Just so obviously Dan needs to have the Wild. I wanted to have the Hawks, which it worked out anyway because 1 and 19. Now the other thing I say why it's like a fantasy draft is because I know, right, Joey? These jokes are horrible. Like they don't have a good sense of humor in Minnesota, I guess.
Check this one out. We got Diego checking into the show. We've not heard from Diego in a long time on this program. Diego, how you doing, buddy?
I appreciate you
out
calling me sexy. I really appreciate that. You should call Dan sexy too, though. He's pretty sexy.
Every once in a while. I have my moments.
But anyway, real quick so we can get into it. The fantasy draft part comes from this. Since I have the odd numbered teams, Dan has the even numbered teams. Him and I virtually put ourselves in the shoes of each of those teams' GMs, quote unquote. Like he said, though, Dan said we didn't necessarily go chalk too much. We kind of did, but we kind of didn't. We had some fun with it. Now, fantasy-wise, I'm saying this is that whenever Dan, like him and I did this live together just a couple nights ago, and how it worked was if I took someone that he was planning on taking at one of his picks, he had to switch his plan up and pick someone else, vice versa.
This happened multiple times where it's like, I have this player ready to go, and if Joel took somebody at that spot, I had to completely scrap it and go a different direction.
Exactly.
But the number of times where I was like, this player to this team is such a good fit, and you have them going one pick before. Diego's saying he'd love to be on with us at some point. Yeah, Diego, we got to.
Hell yeah, dude!
It's been way too long.
It's the season, and when Pod Snipe Celly is in off-season mode, we love having guests.
You know what it was? We were talking about the Islanders earlier in the show. Diego heard that like we had just lit the beacon, and he was here as soon as he heard us talking Islanders.
I mean, you know,
that's how it goes.
So now the only other thing, the only other nuance too, and I know people are going to probably ask about it. We decided mutually to keep the picks as is. So we didn't make any like potential trade ups or trade downs or what have you. However, both Dan and I will have notes, and we'll jump in on our picks and say like, hold on, like here's what I did, but maybe I could see this happening. But we wanted to keep the picks where they were. So those are the rules. Pretty easy, pretty simple.
Everybody who has their pick as of 8:00 tonight keeps their pick. If we have a trade of a first-round pick during this show, we're going to leave it as is.
Weird. And I don't think that'd be weird.
It would be. It could happen though.
You know what? We're going to accept that challenge. If that happens live during the show, we will switch it on the fly.
Yeah, the way today has gone, it literally would not surprise me at this point. Joel, it has been the worst kept secret in sports since the lottery draft. Do you just want to get us started here with this number one overall pick?
Of course I do. And to literally nobody's surprise, with the first overall pick in the 2023 NHL draft, my Chicago Blackhawks will select Connor Bedard, center from the Regina Pats.
Yeah, Bedard, consensus number one overall player in this draft. Has been since about draft year -3. We've known for a long time how good Connor Bedard is going to be.
He just won the what was that award last night? The NHL awards. What was it called again?
The Connor Bedard Award given to Connor Bedard for being Connor Bedard. No, he was the IIHF Player of the Year, the inaugural IIHF Player of the Year. Just putting up absolutely stupid video game numbers. 143 points in 57 games at the WHL this year. 23 points in 7 games at World Juniors. 3.29 points per game. It's just insane the things that he does. He is an electric skater. He has incredible vision, creativity, hands. I hate that I'm saying all of this about a guy who is going to the Hawks. He is going to be in my nightmares for the next decade plus, unless he opts out after his ELC, which I can hope and dream and pray. But he's probably
go back to the stats. I don't smoke, but I kind of need a cigarette after all that.
Yeah. Let me read these off one more time. 143 points in 57 WHL games, 23 points in 7 games at World Juniors, where he won gold, by the way.
Yes, he did.
So
and had some of the craziest highlight reel goals we've ever seen, and set a few records for nationals. Straight buffoonery to take Bedard over Fantilli. Yeah.
HP bringing the jokes once more.
You know what, though?
Diego with a great question here, and I did want to ask you about this. Do you think Bedard's size will cause issues as he transitions?
My answer first is absolutely not, and yes, jokes aside of me being ridiculously excited to have him, all that stuff. No, because quite frankly, we've moved away from the whole size being an issue for a player. I mean, the same exact things were said back in 2007 with Patrick Kane, and that turned out quite nicely. Same things were said about Alex DeBrincat. He's a damn good player. Same things could have been said about Marty St. Louis. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Kirill Kaprizov in his draft year was considered small, and that's part of why he fell to the 5th round.
Exactly. So I guess now, Diego, this isn't towards you. You that's a very good question and a serious question. So no, it's not a problem. He is NHL ready. I mean, quite frankly, arguably the top 10 prospects in this draft are already NHL ready, but he's NHL ready. His size won't matter. Will he need to beef himself up? Oh, absolutely. Just because, you got to worry about the goons that are going to run him just because he's the new superstar, new meat, right? So, oh yeah. I mean,
there are, because there are some backwards thinking GMs who like players will fall. Bedard is not going to be one of those guys who will fall.
No, and quite frankly, there's
it's not
outside of Bedard too, though. There's quite a few smaller players that are being the word elite is being thrown around their name outside of Bedard, and a lot of GMs aren't going to let that sway them. Like size at this point, the game has moved towards speed, agility, skill. The game is not anymore like this. You need to be this jacked 6+ foot guy that can kill people but can also score.
Look at how running around, playing a physical game, and trying to bully everybody out of the building worked for Florida in the Cup final this year.
Exactly.
Like it worked decently well to get them there, but they were so spent by the time that they got there that a puck possession, control the play type of team like Vegas walks away with the Cup. Diego, you just broke my heart by saying that. Side note, the Hawks are his second team.
Diego, we just became best friends. I mean, we were already slightly best friends anyway, but now we officially are best friends.
Matthew, Minnesota Wild Talk, bringing up some guys that will fall with their size here. Benson Moore and Jaden Perron. I want to talk about Jaden Perron later on in the show here. We're going to talk about all those guys, but Jaden Perron in particular is one that I want to highlight.
To put a bow on Diego's question too, though, because you mentioned it in the Cup final here.
Let me put that back up here.
Oh, So I think for me, the transition, I of course noticed this. I watched it intently. The first time I really noticed that like transition truly being put to the test of the game, the gameplay style, was in 2015 with our last Cup run. In that series against Anaheim beat the shit out of every single one of our players. And they literally flat out said, I remember Ryan Kessler in an interview saying, they're not going to be able to take all these hits forever. They're not going to be able to take this forever. Guess what? They did. That was the first true sign where it was like, yeah, you can play with brute force, but it's not going to work. Good, skilled teams will find a way to overcome that.
I was just going to say, the way that you beat that type of, we're going to run you through the boards and knock you around, be a better skater.
Right.
Skate faster, be more agile, get out of the way. Yeah. There are few players that combine skating technique with high-level hockey IQ and ability in the world like what Connor Bedard can do. I'm not just talking in this draft class. There are NHL players already, 10-year vets in this league, that do not have as refined of skating abilities as what Bedard already has. To call him the most highly regarded prospect since Connor McDavid is 100% fair. To say that he is at a draft level where the hype around him is to the point of a Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin is more than fair. I think we're talking about a guy who in 3 years or less, we will be talking about as a top 5 player in this league, even at 21. And I know we've had some guys recently who at the top of draft boards, looking at you, Alexis Lafreniere, who had a lot of hype coming out and weren't able to live up to it right away. Some guys who are taking a little longer to develop. I absolutely love what the NHL did today when they announced the schedule release, and the opening game for the Hawks next year is going to be in Pittsburgh against Sidney Crosby and the Penguins, and you're kind of getting almost a passing of the torch of Sidney Crosby has been the center face of the league for a while. It's becoming McDavid, but that's going to be a welcome to the NHL moment, because the opening face-off next season is going to be Connor Bedard against Sidney Crosby. And if you don't get excited about that as a hockey fan, you're not a hockey fan.
You're not a hockey fan.
It's that simple to me. It's that he's that good. There's really no other way to say it than that. Moving to the second overall pick, I had this one, and as mentioned, it's Adam Fantilli. I know there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of days, in particular.
We got to get into that.
Leo Carlson might move up into this spot. That Will Smith might move into this spot. That Matvei Michkov could go in this spot.
Where is all of that smoke? Like you always have that type of stuff. There's always going to be a narrative that gets popped out there from so and so and this and so that. But
yeah,
this narrative that Fantilli could drop to 3, Jesus, I saw him drop to 4 in a mock draft, and I'm like, why is this narrative getting so much smoke? If Connor Bedard weren't in this draft, it would be Adam Fantilli.
It would be. And you look at just the accolades that Fantilli already has of being the third freshman ever to be a Hobey Baker winner. 65 points for University of Michigan this year. All Big Ten team, all freshman team. Nearly made it to he made it to the Frozen Four with Michigan this year. Almost made it to the finals against Quinnipiac, but Quinnipiac ultimately was the champion this year. So you lose in the semifinal to the team that wins it all. You're a damn good hockey team. No messing around there. Fantilli, I would be very surprised if he is going back to Michigan next season. I think the Ducks want him in the lineup from day one. I don't know that he will be first line minutes out of the gate. I think Bedard will be. I think Fantilli, you probably have him go as your second center behind Zegras and McTavish. Whichever one of those two you're going to have play center. One's going to play center, one's going to play wing. I think there is a good chance Zegras eventually moves to the wing. Fantilli, future 1C, solid everywhere on the ice. There's not a really big area of his game where he struggles. He's got the power. He's got elite skill, through the roof competitiveness, World Junior gold, IIHF gold. There's no reason for Fantilli to not go second. HP saying Fantilli could have won a natty if he played for the Gophers. If Fantilli played for the Gophers this year, that already stacked Gophers team getting even better. But you can't deny how good Michigan is too. I really thought it was going to be Minnesota against Michigan for the final, and Quinnipiac, for all of the guys they had that were on their team, able to get the win there. No shocker here. Fantilli goes too.
All right.
On to third overall.
So the Blue Jackets at number 3. Again, no shocker here, and I'll probably just get it out of the way and tell you that the top 4 is pretty much chalk. Leo Carlson is going to go number 3 here. Despite, again, all the smoke that I'm talking, where we mentioned about, could Leo Carlson go second? That's one of the biggest ones, is Leo Carlson specifically going second, and then Fantilli going to Columbus. And Columbus would shit if that happened. But ultimately, no. Went chalk here. Leo Carlson is definitely going to be the move here. Look, Carlson finished 5th all-time in draft year scoring in the SHL, 1 point behind Nicholas Backstrom. That's a very, he's pretty good. He's all right.
Decent comp.
Yeah, he's okay. And they tied in per game output. I think he's NHL ready. I've heard that there's some kind of back and forth. Maybe he might be, could he not start in the big leagues in the first year. I think he could, and especially too with the moves we saw Columbus make. Columbus acquiring Provorov and Damon Severson. Obviously, they picked up Johnny Gaudreau a year ago too. Like, those are moves. Yeah, they're reminiscent of a rebuild, but they're more reminiscent of a rebuild that's clearly being sped up.
It's an on-the-fly rebuild for sure, just kind of to retool, plug and play.
Yeah.
And Karlsson, the only thing that worries me is, will he have the speed from day one to be NHL ready on day one? I do think he probably plays in Sweden one more year just to really work with a skating development coach, bring his speed along. All of the other tools are there with Karlsson, and
Exactly.
the player you've got to love for Columbus at 3.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to me, that puts them, like the moves I just mentioned, obviously Leo Carlsson, I'm going to say right now, slotting right in to start the season out of training camp. I think, yeah, I mean, I've heard that too, because there's more smoke that I'm willing to believe is that Will Smith goes at 3. That's been a lot of the most recent, also plausible smoke and talk around.
If there's someone going to unseat Karlsson at 3, it is Will Smith
or Matvei Michkov. I know, but technically that's been the narrative. You take the whole 3-year, timeline with Michkov out of it. There are teams that are willing to be patient with that. And even though Columbus is making quote unquote win, I'm not going to say win now moves, but they're making win very soon moves. That to me, I don't think they're going to do it. Yeah, exactly. I really, exactly. So it's weird. And here's my thing, my final bow on the 3rd overall pick here for Columbus is that Columbus very much underperformed. They were the best odds to land Bedard. They didn't, but they really shouldn't have had the first odds anyway, because they should not have been as bad as they were.
They had the second in the odds.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they had second odds. My bad. Yeah.
But Columbus did not have a single player play a full 82 games this season. They had, I think, 3 players who played 70 or more games. Might have only been 2. They were just decimated by injuries this year. You get everybody back, you get everybody healthy, and you add in some early draft capital in the way. Plus, you've got some solid young guns in your system. You have Trey Fix-Wolansky, who's going to be coming up from the AHL. Signed, I believe I saw today that he signed his 2-year deal and will be with Columbus next season. David Juracek defensively as well is on the way. I do think the move for Columbus is to go forward. I do think the move is center. You can never have too many centers. Take it from a guy whose team has never had a true 1C. You need centers. You just have to have them across the board. So take a shot, take a center, go get your guy. Diego's saying make Johnny Hockey happy moves. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do what makes your star player happy. If those are the guys that he wants to play with, you go out and you get them. Playing with a center like Leo Carlsson would really open up Gaudreau's game once again. I think it's a solid pick. I think you nailed the Columbus pick here. And as you kind of alluded to at number 4, I had San Jose going with Will Smith. San Jose could go a ton of directions here. They do have another first-round pick later on. They have number 26 overall from New Jersey, which does give them some room to get a little bit creative at both of those spots. I believe it was Spoke Z who said San Jose makes a ton of sense for Michkov as well. San Jose's window to compete is not open for at least 3 years. They're going to be going through kind of a long process of rebuilding that they're not going to be able to get out from under for at least another year or 2 yet before they can really dump some gasoline on the rebuild fire. I I could see Michkov here. I think, again, though, you look at the upside that Will Smith brings. You look at a guy, he's committed to Boston College next season and just had the second most productive season in U.S. national team development program history behind his line mate and wingman, Gabe Perreault.
Gabe Perreault.
He's so good. Both of them are, Will Smith and Gabe Perreault.
Yeah.
Incredible offensive upside. Defense is a bit of a question mark, but you're going to get incredible offensive production from Will Smith. You knew that you just lost some offensive punch having traded Timo Meier, as alluded to with that Devils pick. That's where San Jose got 26. You need that offensive future that you're going to build around. To me, Will Smith is that center that you build around offensively.
All right.
Joel.
So at number 5, and officially where the draft officially starts.
This is where things kind of go a little bit off the board. You had probably 3 different guys penciled into this slot over the last week, and even made changes as recently as yesterday when putting this together. So
yeah, and actually I'll call it out. There was a change I made literally while you and I were talking about the Cup final. So
yeah.
So, now it's locked in, but at 5, I have the Canadians taking Dalibor Dvorsky.
I am so intrigued by this move. A guy who solid seasons with the Swedish World Junior team at J20 with AIK. Solid two-way center.
Yep.
One of those guys who does a lot of things good, but how many of them does he do great things with?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he's kind of like a Swiss Army knife, right? He does do a lot of things well. Can he elevate to a 1C? Well, we'll find out.
Yep.
That's kind of the thing. I mean, he's sizable, 6'1", 200. That's a pretty nice size. It goes along with, they brought in Kirby Doc, right? And I'm assuming, and he, maybe if Dvorsky plays this year with the big club, which maybe
I would be surprised.
Yeah, I know he's one of the ones where that's why I know this is probably a reach. I know he's kind of been all over the boards. He's, I've seen him as high as, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I've seen him as low as like 17 to like 20. He's kind of all over the place. But I don't know. I think it's a flyer that Montreal could surprise us with. And this is also where we probably need to talk about, all right, where's Michkov going to go?
Yeah, because he could go right
here.
I could see Michkov going anywhere in the top 10 shy of number 1. And even had you asked, coming into this year, it was kind of Bedard or Michkov, who's it going to be? And Fantilli came on late. Obviously, the political, the war with Ukraine and what Russia is doing there plays a factor with Michkov. Is Montreal willing to take that chance? And you said no here.
No.
We've heard some reports that, yes, they're in love with Michkov, and if he's there, he's not getting past 5. Is that a ruse to try and get somebody to trade up for him? Entirely possible. Dvorsky at 5. And Diego saying here, Elliot Friedman saying it is 100% confirmed that the Habs take Michkov if he's there at 5. This may be a tactic hoping another team drafts him, which even if they do, it's a good situation for Montreal. It is confirmed they're sold on him, though. How can you not be sold on Michkov? You watch him play, everybody in the top 5 can and should be sold on Michkov. But it's just a matter of, do you value him more than those other players?
And that's the thing, too. I think the other big part about me going a little safer, as if I were the Montreal GM, that market, that media is kind of tough. So if you pick Michkov,
not particularly fond of Russian players historically.
Right. So you pick Michkov, who, could potentially be the best Russian prospect since Ovechkin. You pick him, you're waiting at least 3 years, as we know. And then, like you mentioned, there's all the political things that go with it too, which can get amplified even more up in Canada as opposed to potentially some places here. I don't know. Elliot Friedman, I love Elliot Friedman. So, I mean, quite frankly, it looks like Montreal probably land Michkov if San Jose or Columbus don't decide to do it first. But I don't know. I don't know. I played it safe. I was like I'm fearing the media here as the Montreal GM.
Well, and Montreal has a ton of draft needs. Last year they took Uri Slafkovsky at 1 overall. So they just took a high profile winger with a top 5 pick. Would they take another winger with a top 5 pick in back-to-back years? That's a bit tough. We, at one point, by we, I mean you, had David Reinbacher penciled into this spot as someone who Montreal needs defensive help.
They do.
Montreal needs help up the middle. That's why they went out and traded for Alex Newhook. Adding him in as some insurance, you want to get as many darts on the board as you can.
Yeah.
I do like your pick of Dvorsky here. Montreal could pick anybody but a goalie at 5, and it would not surprise me. A goalie at 5 absolutely would. It's not happening.
I'm going to go out right now, put me on record. No goalies will go in the first round.
See, you think that.
I know. I'm not talking about our mock. Oh, is that a tease?
Ooh, is it? Stick
anyway,
around and find out.
On to number 6, Dan.
Taking into account everything you just said with Montreal, taking into account the Coyotes are next on the clock, I could not wait any longer to get Matvei Michkov into our mock draft. At 6 overall, like you said, it's going to be 3 years before Michkov plays in the NHL. He is under contract in the KHL until 2026. That is a lot longer than most draft year prospects are signed when they're playing in Russia in their draft year. Michkov has, I would say, probably, if you're saying Bedard has the highest overall offensive ceiling in this class, to me, Michkov is number 2 on that list with what he can bring.
Yeah.
Now, he, as well, like Bedard, has some size concerns. And as we mentioned the other day on our call, Elite Prospects still has him listed at 144 pounds. That is not accurate.
It's not accurate. No,
it needs an update.
I updated it. He is actually, I just had it.
He's at like 170.
He's
or somewhere in that range.
Where the hell did I put it? He's 5'10", 172. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what they have him listed at. But again, also an undersized but extremely skilled player, plays on the wing, is beyond creative. The things that he does with the puck, like you're blown away watching him. And again, if he were playing in Canada right now, he's probably going number 2 because teams would not have to wait as long for him to get to North America and start playing here. But I understand the concern. I understand all of that fear. Arizona is not a team that is looking to compete immediately. And you look at the armada of draft picks they're going to have coming through, something like 20 picks through the first 3 rounds over the next 3 years. Michkov kind of leading the way there, somebody who you could put on Logan Cooley's wing. The creativity that those two would come up with, the playmaking, would be incredible. And then the Coyotes pack up and move to Houston or Quebec City or Kansas City or anywhere else, because of course that's how it's going to go. All of that waiting just to get crushed as the team leaves. I would hate to see that for Arizona, but I think the timeline of the teams that are picking in the top 10 here, other than maybe San Jose, I think the timeline works out best for the Coyotes in taking Michkov.
Absolutely. And there he goes. Matvei Michkov is off the board now. Maybe a little lower than expected, but
number 7.
Number
Flyers.
7, the Philadelphia
By the way,
Flyers.
also have 2 first-round picks here as well.
They do. And so if our boy Jesse is watching, I want to hear him in the comments and see what he thinks of my pick. Because the first defenseman is off the board, I have the Flyers at 7 taking David Reinbacher. And
I like this one. I gotta say.
Yeah, here's the thing. And based on a lot of things I was reading today and over the course of the last couple of weeks, and this was one of my moves. I had the Flyer. I forgot who I had the Flyers taking a few days ago. And then I moved Reinbacher.
Ryan Leonard. Again, under consideration.
And quite frankly, that was the other. Actually, I think that's who I had. And then I moved him. So
it could be.
So I moved him. Here's the thing. For one, David Reinbacher is basically the consensus top D in this class. Obviously, it's a very weak defensive class amongst one of the most powerful forward classes.
It's not even that it's necessarily a weak defensive class. It's I would say average.
It's overshadowed.
The forwards are so good.
Yes, it's overshadowed by the forwards being the best we've seen in God knows how many years. Mm-hmm. And he's mostly a defensive defenseman. He's got some offensive upside. Maybe pair him with Cam York. That's where I'd like to have some Flyers fans chime in and tell me if I'm right there or not. But the other thing to take note of here, I was thinking of, is the moves that and also I've seen people have compared him a little bit to Moritz Seider, and he's pretty good too. He's pretty good. He's all right.
Yeah, if you can get Moritz Seider out of the gates into Philly, you're going to like that a lot.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that got me to do this is they just moved on from Ivan Provorov, right? They made the first kind of big offseason or close to offseason, I guess, trade, shipping off Ivan Provorov, and basically getting Reinbacher gives you a chance to get your number 1, or I guess maybe at worst number 2 defenseman right back after shipping off Provorov. And that's why I think this was such a good fit.
Yeah, I look at the Flyers organization, and defense has not been a strong suit in recent years. You look at the guys who are still there. Tony DeAngelo is all offense, no defense. He is a black
He's
hole.
also a douchebag.
Yeah.
You don't have to sugarcoat it. He's also a douchebag.
Yeah, he kind of sucks. But a black hole in the defensive zone. Rasmus Ristolainen, again, we joke on this show about plus minus being a garbage stat, except when you're at one extreme or the other. Rasmus Ristolainen has the worst career plus minus of any NHLer active.
You were telling me this. Yeah. Wait, did you still have that stat up?
It's like bottom 10 or bottom 15 all time. He's a career minus 176.
That's it. That's insane.
It is. And he has
it's overrated,
40 point difference between the next closest player.
Yeah,
it's
that's disgusting.
A lot.
That's gross.
And you look at guys like Nick Seeler, who, he's not going to be in your top 6 2-3 years from now. Love Nick Seeler. He's not going to be your top 6. Sean Walker, who they just traded for with the Kings, probably still going to be around. I like Walker's game a lot, but he's been hurt lately. He's coming off, I believe, a reconstructive knee surgery. What is he going to look like once he's back and healthy? He did play quite a bit this year for the Kings, but again, still didn't look like what we've come to expect from him. So I think, especially knowing that you have 2 and you can go 2 picks in the first round and you can go out and get the top defenseman in the class in Reinbacher, I think it's a solid pick for Philadelphia here at 7. And Matthew, you just mentioned Ryan Leonard to the Flyers at 7. Well, guess what? I have him going to the Capitals at number 8.
I skipped on him and went defense, and Dan jumped on it with.
Thank you very much. Let me get the guy who is one of the most productive players in the history of the National Team Development Program. Let me go get a guy who is going to play again with his National Team Development Program teammates at Boston College next year. It's entirely possible that you get Leonard, Smith, and Perreault on a line at BC. They could break him up and throw Cutter Gauthier in there. Boston College is going to be nasty next year. Like they have to be the odds-on favorite right now to be your NCAA men's champions next year. Leonard is going to be a one and done at BC and be at the Caps in 2 years.
Yeah,
he's that good. Lethal shot, skilled dangler, skilled passer. He will go into the corner and battle and come out with the puck, and you'll be like, how in the world did he do that? He's 6 flat, 190, and he'll take on 6'5" defensemen who have 30 pounds on him and come away with the puck. Kind of a bulldog mentality. The real question is going to be, does he play center or does he play surprise? The Capitals have a need for both. I love Ovechkin. He's not going to be around forever. You need to find somebody who's going to be your winger and your scoring winger when Ovechkin eventually does hang him up. Ryan Leonard, to me, is, while he's not going to be Ovechkin, it's going to be a very long time before we see another Ovechkin. Right. It's a once-in-a-generation kind of player. Leonard could be the type of guy who can produce high-end offense, even if not at an Ovechkin level, but at a level that you are going to be able to count on him consistently for 40 goals a year, and nobody's going to bat an eye at that.
Yep. Totally. Now with number 9, the Detroit Red Wings, making the Blackhawks fan pick for the Red Wings. I'm pretty sure I picked for the Red Wings like twice.
I think you picked. I think you picked for the Red Wings and 2 of the 3 Blues picks.
I know, which just makes me want to throw up. But anyway, at number 9, the Detroit Red Wings are going to be taking Zach Benson.
Mm-hmm.
He's got elite hockey IQ, right? And I know his work ethic kind of matches it to the WHL. He had 98 points in 60 games played. He's also coming from a team that produced 2 first-round picks with Matt am I saying this name right? Savoie. Yep. I'm not French, people. I just hope you know that. And also Connor Geeky, who I really like. So
Winnipeg is just a factory for forwards in recent years.
Right. So he's an excellent two-way forward, maybe one of the best two-way guys in this class, right? Average skater and he, again, the thing is we're going to be saying this a lot. He's undersized. You know, he's 5'10", 170. He's got to beef himself up too. But again, the whole height thing, there's quite a few guys we could toss into this where we're going to say they're undersized. All these kids are 17, 18 years old. Like maybe their height won't be growing, but they can beef themselves up. And we know height doesn't really matter. I think this is good for the Wings. The Wings don't go. I thought I saw something about the Red Wings going potentially Reinbacher here if he drops when he drops further than I had him going, right? But the thing is they're pretty solidified on the back end right now. They have Cider. They have some prospects there already. I think they want to get a nice good winger in there. And look, Detroit they're on the come. They underperformed last year, but they're approaching, and I think Benson could probably be with them in, would I be wrong in saying 2 or 3 years?
I think that's about the right time frame. Again, there aren't going to be a ton of guys who will be NHL ready next season.
Right.
There will be a couple right at the top of the draft. There's probably going to be somebody who really impresses out of camp.
Yep.
And ends up there as well. But those guys tend to be few and far between. I look at this Red Wings team that has gone center heavy over the last couple of drafts. They went out and got Marco Kasper last year.
Right.
You're looking for somebody who is going to be able to play on the wing. It is I don't think it's as true of that is an Yzerman pick as what Marco Kasper was last year. Like that was such a layup for Detroit last year.
That's the other thing too, though. We know Yzerman is patient.
Yes. He's not going to rush guys. He's going to make sure they come up when they're ready. You can afford to take your time with Benson a little bit. And the one that really jumped out at me is, and Elite Prospects had this in their massive prospect guide that they put together. It's insane how much detail they went into. But it said in a multi-year data set of more than 3,000 forwards, Benson's underlying playmaking data is second only to Connor McDavid. You look at 3,000 draft-eligible players.
Holy hell.
And you're talking about a guy who is on a playmaking level with those underlying metrics, second only to Connor McDavid. You know you're going to be getting an outstanding setup guy in Benson at number 9.
Yeah, getting told I'm second only to Connor McDavid. That's just only a very slight high praise. Just a little. Just a little.
Yeah, that McDavid guy is pretty good. One vote away from being a unanimous Hart Trophy winner.
Why do you got to bring it up? I don't want to go on a rant.
Yeah, we'll not sidetrack things.
That one writer doesn't deserve to have his voting privileges. All right, moving on.
Joel, you mentioned Reinbacher being the first defenseman off the board.
Uh-oh.
And I think this is where we're going to end up seeing our second one go. At number 10 to the St. Louis Blues, I have Axel Sandin-Pellikka.
One of the most fun names in the draft.
Yeah, ASP is the guy for me for St. Louis at 10. I look at the Blues organization top to bottom. Most of their top 6D right now are on the wrong side of 30. Their defensemen in the system are guys who have some upside, but also some pretty big red flags along the way. They need help in a lot of places, and they're trying to rebuild on the fly. This is not a pick that will help them for next season. This is a pick that will help them 3 years from now when you're not sure if Scott Perunovich is going to be able to stay healthy long enough. The upside is there with Perunovich, but can he stay healthy is the big question. I think ASP checks a ton of boxes. He was a better than a point per game player with Swedish juniors, better than a point per game at World Juniors, both at U18 and at the international junior competitions. Tournament all-star team at U18 juniors and the best defenseman of the tournament. Where Reinbacher was the better defensive defenseman and maybe even better two-way defenseman, Sandin-Pellikka is probably the best offensive defenseman in this class.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I know he's a very skilled puck mover, and he can make a lot of plays in the O-zone, so that pretty much alludes to everything about him being the best offensive defenseman in the draft. So I totally agree there. Yeah, I think it's a good pick. Not to mention too, this one really doesn't surprise me going defenseman, at least the first of their 3 picks that they have in the first round, because we were talking about this last night or the other night, in that the Blues really have an aging decor. And what did I do? I compared them to the 2018 Blackhawks decor when I looked up and down their line. Colton Parayko, he's fine. He's a good player. He's fine. But then you got Robert Bortuzzo. Yeah, whatever. Oh God, who else? I didn't even. I had them all pulled up, and
Marco Scandella.
Yeah, Marco Scandella. Torrey Krug again. Torrey Krug is solid, but a lot of these guys are on the wrong side of 30, or at least just over 30, and I think they need to start getting younger in that aspect. Now, it's interesting, and I think this is going to get alluded to because you're right. I have the next 2 Blues picks, so I'll talk more about this as I get to my picks there. But a theme that now is going to start throwing me for a loop is what we just saw today with the Blues acquiring Kevin Hayes.
Yeah.
Which completely
that's a head scratcher to me.
Look, last season, a lot of the moves they made with, at the deadline, they started falling off. We were like, look, the rebuild is on in St. Louis. The rebuild is on in Nashville. The rebuild is on. The rebuild in the entire Central Division outside of Dallas and Minnesota, and I guess maybe Winnipeg,
Colorado.
Colorado. Like
Winnipeg is headed for.
Well, Winnipeg now is. We didn't know. We didn't know yet. Then we didn't know that
this time last year. Yeah, we did not know. This time this year, they're
but around then, we really those teams I mentioned weren't really, but the Blues have always been like they're going to be in rebuilding mode, and then they go and add Kevin Hayes. So in them saying they want to, they were showing they want to get younger, and maybe rebuild is too strong of a word to use for them, but retool or small rebuild is really what we thought was happening, and then that happens. So my whole point here is they need to get younger on defense here. They need to get a nice pool of defensive prospects in there, and that's a good pick. I totally think I can see them doing this. At least they should, but who knows now?
Right. And again, there are probably 5 different players I think that are on the board who all of whom would make sense. But Sandin Pellikka, for what he's going to bring to the Blues from an offensive side on the blue line, they do not have a player like him in their system. They just don't. Yeah. And when you can get a guy who has the tools, the skill set that he has, that does not exist anywhere in your system, you go get him.
Yep.
11 overall.
And this is hilarious because in this heavy forward class, we will continue to say it and blow out our vocal cords and be a broken record, right? I have our third defenseman and second defenseman in a row going, and I have the Canucks at 11 taking Tom Willander. I'm going to say Willander.
Yeah, Willander. Yep.
Willander. There we go. Tom Willander to the Canucks. Look, he is a big draft year riser, super high-end skating, big motor, two-way style. He more leans towards a defensive play, though, right? He doesn't really have the high-end offensive skill set, but he's reliable with the puck. He's smooth on the breakouts. The other big thing here, again, I think a big theme for a lot of my picks comes down to fit. And the Canucks have taken a first-round defenseman, Quinn Hughes being one of those, in the last 6 drafts, and 2 first-round D since 2006.
Yeah, 2 first-round defensemen in the last 17 years.
Right. So they're building up their defensive core. Quinn Hughes is definitely leading the charge there, as I mentioned. And, and also they, who they picked, Jet Wu was the other one in 2018. Finding more talent at that position is definitely imperative. So, look, Willander will end up playing at you mentioned Boston, so he's going to play at Boston next season. And I mentioned, he's got a nice competitive.
Is he?
Yeah.
I didn't think.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Boston U. Yep. You're right.
Yep. So Boston, the strong Boston just gets stronger.
You said Boston. I was thinking Boston College.
Sorry, Boston U. My bad.
Boston U. I was going like, wait, you're telling me that? Yeah. No.
My bad. Boston U.
U.
Boston University, not Boston College. Sorry.
I was going to say. I thought. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. So yeah, Boston University. But yeah, I just they tend to lean heavy on defense, and I think it goes with a theme too. Maybe it was just you and I acting as the GMs, but I almost approached this and got the mindset of almost like a fantasy football mindset. When you're drafting fantasy football, usually everyone's like, oh, there's God knows how many wide receivers. I can let some wide receivers fall, and I'll take the running backs early on. Similar here, where it's like, look, I can. With how deep this draft is with forwards, I'm going to find a super skilled forward a little bit later on. So why don't I take one of the few damn good defensemen that are in this draft, and I'll take them early.
You know who's got that same mindset? The Arizona Coyotes at pick number 12 when they take Dmitry Stimashev.
3 in a row!
3 defensemen in the first round in the top 12 picks. 10, 11, 12 defensemen going flying off the board here.
Everyone, please continue to stay tuned in. We're not about to be this crazy defensive-minded, boring.
Yeah, we're not taking 20 defensemen in the first round here, but we are taking the ones who have a ton of upside. We are taking them with the exception of Vancouver. These are teams that are going to have multiple first-round picks. when we put this all together. Again, with the Coyotes, they're 20 some odd picks through the first 3 rounds over the next 3 years. They will get their forwards later in the draft, but you get a 6'4", 198 defenseman who has solid skating technique that is going to translate to better speed, better power as he gets to the next level. He is one of the more physical players in the draft, regardless of position. His skills translate. That's really big. And the Coyotes don't have a ton of defensemen in their pipeline. They do have a couple, but not nearly as many as what they need to be a playoff team again and bring a playoff series win to the desert, assuming the Coyotes stay in Arizona. Simashev to me is one of those guys that I have circled on my board of, if he is somehow by some miracle still there at 21 when the Wild are on the clock, I will have zero problem with them going after Simashev, even though he's a defenseman, just because of the skill set that he has.
Man,
Yeah.
I just still can't get over the 3 defensemen in a row.
Yeah, it's weird how that played out. It's unconventional how it played out.
I promise it's not.
There's maybe like a 5% chance this will end up happening this way tomorrow.
Right.
But you go where you go.
I wonder what the betting lines are of that.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look.
All right, so we'll rattle up. We'll go a little quicker.
Yep. And Joel, I want to tease as well that this one is Simashev's teammate.
Yes. And I mentioned that this was coming. This was the pick that I changed while we were introing the show and talking about the Cup final. And
okay. Well, then do I need to change the banner here? Oh boy, I sure do.
Oh, yes.
Never mind. It is not.
Oh, did you have it up? I wasn't even looking.
I almost had it up. I need to change what was said on the.
I changed it. I changed it.
You changed it in the sheet that we put this mock together on, but I need to change it in the here.
But that's okay, because while you're doing that, I'm going to throw a little rib at our buddy Jesse, who says, Echo is real right now, fellas. Guess what? I know how bad your internet can be. I'm blaming your setup, not ours.
Probably is. I'll take the heat on that.
Also, I'm just messing. But, Jesse, I wanted some Flyers takes. Did you not hear who I picked? I want to hear the Flyers fan take on that, man. Speaking of which, when did they pick again? I'm going to see when we...
They had 7, so they already had 1, and then their next one is at 22.
Oh, all right. And I don't even get to pick them. Well, that's fine.
So you got your pick for Philly, and then I made mine later on at 22.
Yeah. Did you make the banner switch, my guy?
I am almost there.
All right. Well, in the meantime.
There it is.
Oh, you did? All right. Yep. So, yes, at 13, I have the Buffalo Sabres taking Quentin Musty. It's God, that's a fun name. Quentin Musty. Now, admittedly, I don't know that much about Quentin Musty. Now, what I do want to mention is Dan had it up. I actually had Daniil Boot. It's Daniil Boot. I had Daniil Boot going here. I moved him down. He's still my pick. He's a little further down because outside of Michkov, the whole Russian connection thing of not getting here and, the politics and everything, that moved him down. So we'll get to that. So Quentin Musty is going to the Sabres. Why I did that for the Sabres, now really quick, he is a power forward. Quentin Musty is. He's got some of the best, goals per 60 in the class. Solid potential. He definitely needs to improve in the defensive zone. What is he? 6'1", 200. So normal size, good size for a winger. And the thing I did hear is, he's not NHL ready, but at the same time, I still think maybe if he can improve in what I just mentioned, maybe he can get up a little quicker. And this all makes sense when you'll see where I put Daniil Boot, because you might have to wait a little longer on Boot, right? And Musty, maybe you don't have to wait as long, And the Sabres are definitely about to be like their window is slowly creaking open, as we saw. Pretty much
we'll
led by
as
Tage
well.
Thompson. But, what do we got?
Yeah, bit of a hothead with Musty. Yeah, a little bit.
Yes.
Um,
Which is probably good. I mean, you need if you're a team that's getting closer to starting a winning window, not say the cup window, but at least a winning or playoff contending window like the Sabres are and absolutely will be for the next few years here.
Yeah, Buffalo is going to win a playoff series next year. You heard it here first.
Ooh, that's not a hot take. Maybe
not
it's
just make the playoffs; they're going to win a playoff series next year.
I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised. Their window is definitely opening. You're going to want to start maybe getting you always want a pipeline of skilled forwards, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You're specifically maybe even centers. Obviously, you can never be too deep at center. Of course, you want a pipeline of defensemen, but believe it or not, you also, if you want to win championships, you got to at least have a couple hotheads in the wings, someone who's going to go to bat for your stars. Like, similar why this is a veteran move, but I'm happy that in that Taylor Hall trade, we got Nick Foligno in there. Good leadership, but he's also kind of scrappy. We need everybody we can get to defend Connor Bedard. So,
oh, I like this. Buffalo takes a playoff spot from Toronto. That would be insane. That would be insane.
Maple Leafs fans, look away.
Yeah,
look away. Toronto would burn. But yeah, so I did switch that out, and we'll get to that more. And now, Dan,
I like that one though. I think that's a good switch.
That's the thing. Like, maybe he gets here faster, and that's kind of my thing. Is like Buffalo is way closer to winning, and that's why I made the switch with the team that now Daniil But is going to later on in the mock that I will not say. Dan, I hate you for your next pick.
Yeah, because this is a guy that you've kind of had penciled. You were hoping that he would fall to Chicago at 19.
He'd be a great right-hand man for Connor Bedard.
He would, and he is a winger, and he would be on the right side. But going 14 overall to the Pittsburgh Penguins, Gabe Perreault.
Missed him by 5 spots.
Right wing from the National Team Development Program. The most productive single season in National Team Development.
Say it the way it is. He put up cheat code numbers this year.
Yeah, he did. Better numbers than Austin Matthews, better number than Jack Hughes, better numbers than Logan Cooley. 132 points in 63 games.
Silently, just no big deal that happened. It really did. That really did fly under the radar, though.
Yeah, and as I see his game, I see Pittsburgh needing guys who, as Crosby and Malkin are later in their careers, you need some guys who are going to be able to add some scoring punch and play on that kind of a line. Mm-hmm. I think it's entirely likely that Perreault goes in the top 10. I think him falling to Pittsburgh at 14 is probably a little bit of a reach. But when we had our run on defensemen there, I would not be surprised at all to see Vancouver take him at 11. I would not be surprised to see the Blues take Perreault at 10. I don't even know if I'd be surprised seeing him go to Detroit at 9. He has that kind of talent. And when you get somebody who can create as much offensively as what Perreault can do, you got to take a shot at him.
Maybe the GMs will be stupid and he'll go 19.
Here. What was that? Sorry.
I said maybe GMs will be stupid and he'll go 19.
I would be very surprised if he
I know. And actually, finish your thought. And before we move on to my pick, I have remember we'd mentioned trade notes.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one.
Yeah. Perreault, beyond just being the great offensive weapon that he is, incredible hockey IQ. Mm-hmm. He's so good both with and without the puck. And when you're playing with somebody like Crosby, like Malkin, which he would be, you have to be able to find those open areas on the ice. You have to be able to keep up with the play. His skating stride does cause some concerns for scouts. I am not an expert in skating technique by any stretch, but that is the knock on his game that we've seen in scouting reports.
Yeah.
When you can score at the level he is scoring at, I am not as concerned about the skating. And if you're telling me, hey, he's going to be on a line with Crosby or Malkin, the skating is going to get there.
And quite frankly, too, him dropping wherever he drops, because he really will drop. Happy will
love you for that. Yeah.
Love you for that.
Our buddy State of Happy, who will be on the Soda Pod.
Yeah, I tweeted at Isha. He tagged Pod Snipe Celly, so technically that means I'm invited to that.
Oh, you're invited. They have the scheduled guests on for when they have them on, but come hang out.
I'll come join while I'm popping bottles after the first overall is finally announced.
You're going to be just on another level tomorrow night. You're going to be on another planet after that first pick is finally in. You're going to buy the jersey and crash the NHL site. Is what
I'm actually not even joking. Thursday when I go into the office, I'm stopping at the Blackhawk store on my way home and getting the jersey.
Yeah, good luck. They'll be sold out by then.
Don't care. I will try.
You got to.
I need a new hat anyway. New Blackhawks hat. But yeah, no. I mean, Gabe Perreault, I would argue he could be one of our you mentioned some, maybe we won't have that many first-year starters here. Gabe Perreault could be one of those surprise ones.
It really would surprise me because, again, he's committed to Boston for next year.
Oh, that's right. I forgot he was committed. My bad.
Yeah. So I do think that whole group is going to be one and done.
So there's a theme now to the next 3 picks, including the pick you just made. And here's my trade note. We didn't want to do trades. We didn't want to make things weird and complicated and whatnot. So there are a lot of rumblings. Hell, not even rumblings. Kyle Davidson himself has gone on record saying between 19 overall and then the 4 second-round picks. So 5 picks in whatever the math is there, 20 spots or whatever it is. 30 spots, whatever it is. Kyle Davidson has said the odds of us making all 5 of those picks where they're at isn't necessarily high. Take that as you will. I take that as he could be aggressive and he could use 19 and 1 or 2 of those second rounders to trade up. And I think, and this is why I mention it now, I think he could potentially do that and trade up, the Hawks trade up into anywhere where we've started. So anywhere in between 11 Vancouver. So anywhere in between 11 through, I'd say 15, maybe 16. Yeah, probably 11 through 16. I could see us trying to pull off a swap 19 for one of 11 through 16 and then include one of the second round picks, or if it's higher up into the 11 area, include 2 of those second round picks to take any of the 3 players we're going to mention right now. You mentioned Gabe Perreault, that'd be one of them. There's 2 more players that are getting picked next that I would hope we take, either if they fall to us at 19 or if we trade up to get into that spot and take one of these 3. And then,
by the way, Matthew's saying if anyone in the top 10 takes Perreault, it would be the Red Wings. Yeah, I could see that.
I could definitely see that. Yeah. So with 15, all that said,
leaving it as Nashville for now.
Oliver Moore.
I hate you so much for this one.
I hate me so much for this one because if Gabe Perreault can't come to the Hawks, I want Oliver Moore or the next guy. We'll get to the next guy. Look, I looked a lot into Oliver Moore, and I know there was a quote from, I think it was a quote from Elite Prospects. We've never scouted a faster, more agile skater than Oliver Moore in our time covering the draft in an editorial capacity. That's nuts. Dan, I know this is also your draft crush.
Yeah, if there is a guy...
is it because he's committed to University of Minnesota?
That's not the only reason, but that is a big reason. And just loving all things Minnesota hockey, and knowing he's committed there, and that I'm going to get to watch him play next year, I'm psyched. I'm so excited for that.
So
he is the best skater, hands down, in this class.
Yeah, I've started looking him up a lot more. a podcast I love in Chicago, the CHGO podcast, CHGO Blackhawks podcast. They've talked a lot about this guy. They've talked a lot about Gabe Perreault, and then they've also talked a lot about the next guy. But so I've looked into him a lot more, and yeah, I have fallen in love with Oliver Moore, with the next player, and then Gabe Perreault. Right now, from a Predators perspective, Barry Trotz is about to take over as general manager on July 1, and he has gone on record telling his scouts he wants to take some high-end swings on some guys. And Moore absolutely is a perfect fit for taking a high-end swing. He's a left shot.
Guy who's going to make a difference.
Exactly.
The second he lands in that organization, it's Oliver Moore.
Yeah, whenever that is, 1, 2 years, whatever, 3 years, whatever. I've seen comparisons of a skill set reminiscent of Dylan Larkin, and that's massive.
Oh, dear Matthew, just you wait.
What did he say? I missed it.
He says, Trotz said they're swinging for the fences. They're taking Andrew Crystal.
Oh, God.
Just be patient.
Perhaps.
We'll
look, of the 3 players I keep bringing up here that I would love the Hawks to either somehow be gifted to at 19 or trade up to get one of these 3 guys, I think I actually would probably, believe it or not, pick Oliver Moore out of the 3 just because the center, you can't have too many centers. Obviously Bedard is going to be eventually first line center, but
he's going to be 1C in October.
Exactly. But the thing is if by that off chance he does move to wing, I don't see that happening. But I'm keeping the unknown there. I don't know. It's a
concern. People have said with his size, can he play center in the NHL?
Right. And to me, that's maybe the one valid argument you can throw to me about his size is being able to consistently win faceoffs with that size versus a lot of the other bigger centers. So I understand. That's kind of why I think Oliver Moore ends up topping my top 3 of these 3 that I want in this middle round area for the Hawks. But yeah, I mean, this dude, if Nashville gets him, the hometown team for the draft is going to get a massive ovation here.
Yeah, that's a home run pick in Oliver Moore.
And now to the other third guy I'm talking about that I hate you for taking because one of these 3 guys I want to just fall to us at 19.
The Calgary Flames at 16 overall, taking Matthew Wood, right wing, out of UConn.
This dude's huge.
He's just a menace. 6'4", 197. He has one of the better shots in the class, whether he is taking one-timers, whether he is shooting off the rush, whether he has time to set up and take a nice wrister.
A big thing I heard too is his shot specifically was compared to Bedard's. Obviously Bedard's is second to none, but they said if you're going to pick a solid number 2 best shot in this draft class, Matthew Wood might be there.
Right. And looking at Calgary and knowing just from this time last year, you lost Johnny Gaudreau. You lost Matthew Tkachuk. You have Huberdeau. Can Mangiapane step up? There is a need for some high-end scoring ability. There is a definite need for wingers in the system. To me, Matthew Wood is the guy that you go get. Matthew, going back to Oliver Moore for a minute, Moore should be nowhere near Nashville. We want Oliver Moore in Chicago. We want him in Minnesota. We don't want him in Nashville.
I totally agree with you. That's why I hated myself for doing it.
Right. Matthew Wood kind of all over the board a little bit with where he's been ranked as just prospect consensus. He does have some skating concerns. He kind of struggled at the beginning of
he's so big
of his draft year. And again, these are things that can be cleaned up.
Yeah.
He had 85 points in the BCHL in his draft year -1. Then in the draft year this year, they say he struggled a little bit at UConn. He was nearly a point per game pace as a freshman with UConn. And he was nearly 2 points per game for Canada at World Juniors. Whatever concerns there were about his draft stock at the start of the year, he has since erased in my mind. And Matthew hates me once again. Oh, hang on. Yeah. Matthew Wood is Matt Boldy, but if he was right, yeah. and says, Dan, I hate you. Yeah, it's a good pick. Again, guys that I wouldn't mind seeing fall to Minnesota, knowing that the Wild are in that range. Trading up from 21 to 15 is probably a little steep. 16, maybe you get there. Wood to Calgary makes a ton of sense to me. I think it's a solid pick.
I've seen so many mock drafts have him going 19, and I can only hope. We do need some size.
Let's get to 17 though, where the Detroit Red Wings are making their
again
pick of the first round.
and
you again have the free pick.
I do, and they are taking a center, and they are taking the Brandon Wheat Kings center, Nate Danielson. So one of the more common names, as opposed to all the other fun names we got. He's a big
Sandin Palika. We get Musty, and then we get
Daniel Boot. We can't forget Daniel Boot.
And then we get more Wood and Danielson.
More Wood,
just right in a row.
Did you do that on purpose?
What?
I think you did that on purpose. Anywho, Danielson to the Detroit Red Wings. I know he's a big creator of rush offense. And, he led, I said he was on Brandon. He led them with 78 points in 68 games. He could pretty much play all situations, put him on the power play, put him on the PK. Not to mention he was Brandon's captain, right? So he's definitely an adaptable handler, more so than like a natural problem solver. He's got the tools in the power game to translate to the league. I know Elite Prospect specifically kind of projects him as a bottom 6 type of guy. But kind of as I mentioned, like you maybe that's a high tier to me. That's a top tier bottom 6 type of guy if that's where he does truly project.
Yeah, if he's a bottom 6 guy, he definitely has offensive upside to his game. The Brandon Wheat Kings were mid is probably generous for where they were this last year. There was not a lot of talent around him, and he still managed to put up better than point per game numbers. I do think his numbers will continue to look good once he's playing with some better teammates around him.
Yep.
And again, these are 16 to 20-year-old kids playing juniors.
Right, exactly.
But Danielson putting up those kind of numbers, and you're bringing a captain, a leader into the organization, somebody who will see penalty kill time, maybe get some power play time as well, but certainly should be getting some PK time in there as well. I like it a lot, and especially after you go for somebody with a little more offensive upside and Benson on the wing, dipping back to go center at 17. I like that pick a lot for Detroit. We're going to have another center going off the board at 18. The Winnipeg Jets, who, as we mentioned earlier, the finger is on the nuclear button in Winnipeg. We just saw him trade Pierre-Luc Dubois. There have been rumors of a Mark Scheifele trade incoming. Winnipeg is nearing the blow it up stage.
Yep.
They need center help. They especially need it now after the Dubois trade. I have them going out and getting Braden Yeager from the Moose Jaw Warriors, the WHL, somebody who coming into this year was looked at as a top 5 pick. Did not have as productive of a year as I think a lot of people were expecting in that regard, but somebody who has the tools, but he's more of a scorer than a setup guy, which normally you want your wingers to be your goal scorers, your centers, your setup guy. I think as hockey continues to evolve, you take your goals where you can get them. Yeager's a guy who's going to put the puck in the net, and Winnipeg is going to be really searching for that over the next couple of years.
Yeah, they really are in kind of nuclear mode, and that's we kind of slowly started to see that coming, and then as soon as this PLB trade kind of finally surfaced today, it was just evident like that it's time. You're giving up if you're sending Pierre-Luc Dubois. You're right. Like Scheifele's probably on his way out too. Yeah,
Scheifele has 1 year left. Wheeler has 1 year left.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I think they want to try, and if I'm them, I do just ultimately hit the button. Don't hesitate. Don't try and get something back for those two guys you just mentioned.
Yeah, and you're hoping Velarde works out. You're hoping Rasmus Kupari works out, but you got to throw more darts.
Right. And now you're kind of right too. Like if Jaeger needs a little more time, well, guess what? If Winnipeg is going nuclear like we really think they should be doing, then they got plenty of time.
Joel, right. You're going to go back-to-back picks here because I gave you the Blackhawks. Well, I shouldn't say I gave you the Blackhawks. You had the odd-numbered picks from the get-go.
I did, but I'm now going. I'm going back-to-back, so you can take the Wild.
Right, so that I can take the Wild at 21. I appreciate that. Floor is yours. Who are the Blackhawks taking at 19 to complement Mr. Connor Bedard?
Yes. So as we said, no trades if we stay at pick 19. And I'm not saying unfortunately with this pick, I do really like who I have here, but we were in this mock. I missed out on Matthew Wood, Oliver Moore, and Gabe Perreault, all three. So in that case, the Blackhawks are in need of some size. So I am going with a winger in Samuel Honzek. So look,
yeah. I hate it, but I like it.
Yeah, I mean he's a big boy, 6'3", 195. We need big wingers. His stat line's not bad. I mean, in the WH, he played 43 games, 23 goals, 33 assists for a nice 53 or 56 points. That's pretty good. That's solid. Left-handed shot. Like I said, the Hawks are in need of size. That is something we absolutely lack right now. And I guess that's why I can understand the concern not the concern of Bedard, but more is anyone thinking about the size issue there? Yeah, we do need some size. Now we have a little more grit and some veteran presence now, bringing in Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno. But I've read about like his hockey IQ. It stood out really well. I mentioned he can make a lot of plays off the rush, big body, can hold off defenders and create time and space. So that's obviously a very nice, not that he would necessarily be on a line with Bedard, but who knows, maybe when he gets up there, maybe.
Well, and if Bedard is your setup guy, Honzek can absolutely be your finishing guy too.
Exactly.
Beyond just being a physical guy.
Exactly. And I think too, like, I did see, I think it was Weeksy. So it was Kevin Weeks I saw in his mock draft about Samuel Honzek mentioned you could potentially maybe if Luke Richardson, whenever Honzek, actually comes up to the big club, however, a couple of years, if you maybe want to test him out at center, I think he's big enough to maybe try that out. You don't have to, but I'm saying maybe you could. And I saw Weeksy mention that, and I'm like, that's kind of enticing because you do that. You park that big body in front of the net. You're getting the dirty goals from all those beautiful shots that are coming in from Bedard.
Well, and Honzek has a nose for the net. Like he uses his body well to create offense. He likes to play on the wall. He likes to play in front of the net.
Yep.
You already know that that's where he's going to try and set up. He gets to those areas. And when you have Bedard creating the offense, you need somebody like Honzek to bully his way to the front of the net and slap in a rebound or catch a pass off the rush and just bury it. Honzek can be that guy.
Yeah. And I mentioned too, real quick before we get to my back-to-back pick, I guess. I forgot about that. He became the third highest scorer for Vancouver in a single season, just behind Fabien Lysell and Gilbert Brûlé.
Yeah, and we should mention as well, he is a center with the Giants right now. He looks like he's going to project a little more as a wing, but can play center.
Yeah,
but most reports are listing him as a winger.
Right, exactly. That was no. He's absolutely a winger, and that's why I drafted him too. I wanted a big-bodied winger for the Hawks since we couldn't get Matthew Wood but. I read that comment from Weeksy, and I don't know, it was just kind of enticing. I was like, well, I mean, if he's got the versatility, I'm all for that. Like, this is a nice quote consolation prize at 19 if we can't land any of the three guys I'm hoping we do. So now back to back, my two Hawks picks are now gone in the mock. We move on to the 20s, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
The Seattle Kraken. And oops, we did it again. We are taking a defenseman, one of the funnier names in the draft too. I have the Kraken taking defenseman Oliver Bonk.
This is a fascinating move to me because I have seen Bonk mocked in the first round. I have seen him mocked in the third round. There is so much variety with where he can go because he doesn't have that same offensive upside, but what he brings defensively as a shutdown defenseman.
Yeah. And
it could get him into round one. And a guy that Seattle kind of needs that role.
Yeah. I've seen him mocked. Actually, I've seen him mocked at 20 for the Kraken. I've seen him mocked at, is it 25 to the Rangers, I believe, right? No, that's the Blues. The Rangers are 23. So I've seen him mocked at 23 to the Rangers. But yeah, as you said, shutdown defensive guy. I know he does need kind of a lot of polish. He's definitely going to be more of a PK guy, especially if he can improve his skating. But the Kraken, to me, just for a fit wise, they've done really well at adding a lot of young forwards, obviously. You know, Matty Beniers, obviously, Calder Trophy winner, Shane Wright. We'll see what happens there, but, you know, again, they've done well with their forward depth. Now it's time for them to start building their defensive prospect depth, right?
Yep.
I'd say they overachieved last year, way overachieved last year. So clearly they got some things to think about.
Yeah, Matthew asking here, is Simashev gone at this point? Yeah, we had
Simashev is gone.
Going at 12 to Arizona.
12. There it is, yeah.
So if Simashev is on the board at 20,
Seattle takes it.
I pounce on Simashev at 20.
Oh, absolutely. That's the only reason I took Bonk here was, again, I'm not trying to be different with the defenseman thing. I just mentioned why I think the Kraken definitely want to start focusing on building more and more of their defensive pipeline because they're already pretty solid on their forward pipeline. But Bonk was the best defenseman available, at least in this current mock draft. So
as we had it set, yeah, he's probably the best defenseman that we have.
So don't worry about it. Yeah, I would not worry about that. If Simashev fell down to 20, the Kraken should jump on him if they do decide to go defense.
Yeah.
And I guess the only mark on him on Bonk is that he's not exactly creative offensively, and he actually has been known to slow down the offense at times from what I've seen. So yeah. Also, fun little fact about him: his father, Radek Bonk, played in the NHL.
Yeah.
So those are my back-to-back picks. So now, Dan, the floor is yours. Who are the Wild? I know all the Wild fans that are listening and commenting want to know who you guys are taking at 21.
Yep. I had such a hard time, as I did with a lot of these picks, because I did not want to take someone who was chalky. I see about 10 different ways that Judd Brackett and Bill Guerin could build this draft class.
Yep.
There are a lot of guys left who, do you go out and get a center, which is, in my mind, the biggest need for the Wild.
That's been your biggest need for years.
If
you picked anyone but a center, I feel like your head's going to be on a spike.
And a lot of people think that. But if the right defenseman is there, if Simashev is still on the board, I have zero problem taking Simashev.
What if Michkov is there?
If Michkov gets to 15, I want the Wild moving heaven and earth to go get him. I really do. Because you're telling me that 3 years from now, I could be in a position where I've got Kaprizov on one wing and Michkov on the other. Sign me up.
That was the other big thing I was talking. Yeah. I was listening to a lot of if we traded 19 and did something and Michkov was there. It's like, get up there now.
The same way that you rejoiced on this show when the Hawks won the lottery.
You would rejoice.
I would rejoice if somehow Michkov ended up in a Wild sweater. It's not going to happen, but a guy can dream.
In 3 years, can you imagine Captain Kirill Kaprizov and Matvey Michkov on a line together.
Those two with maybe Marco Rossi up the middle. That could be fun to watch.
Dude, they're going to trade him. You got to get rid of him. He's done. He's a bust. I'm joking. I'm joking.
See, you say that, but there is such a big portion of the Wild Twitter feed.
That was, yes, I was satirizing them.
Yeah. I had Charlie Stramel in this spot. I had Gavin Brindley in this spot. I had a couple of the Swedish centers because Minnesota loves their Swedes. But what I ended up going with, and I hate it because it does feel a little chalky to me, but I went with Callum Ritchie of the Oshawa Generals, where...
Before you get started, you're very, you clearly picking that is pretty much like a consensus almost. There's a lot of different mocks I've looked at that have the Wild taking Callum Ritchie.
Yeah, which is why I feel like it's a chalky pick, and I kind of hate that we talked about not doing chalk, and then that's exactly what I do when it's my team.
Chalk for mocks, but at the same time, look through the other lens of it could be that much smarter of a pick. If so many people are all in agreement on it.
With me about it.
Oh,
he doesn't
like it. Wait, while Dan's talking, sound off in a longer comment. I want to know why.
Yeah. I even wanted to go Jordan Perron in this spot.
This guy, so
the thing with Callum Ritchie is he is a below average skater. Like, he's great at puck support, great hockey IQ, solid along the wall everywhere on the ice. I think of him as like a support piece type player for a Boldy, for a Kaprizov. There are the concerns about his skating, which I get. I get that that's a big concern for a lot of people, especially as the Wild are trying to move in a direction that leads you to think more speed, more skill versus the size factor. And with Ritchie, he is 6'2", 184. He's decent in the faceoff dot. He's not, Ryan O'Reilly winning 55% or anything like that. And Matthew kind of echoing that point. Oh, hang on, I lost it here.
I got it.
Okay, go ahead. Saying his skating isn't good, and I've heard people say it's not fixable.
That's a solid point.
With the right coaching, most things can be fixable. And especially for a kid who's 18, who is still growing, still learning, everybody is working on their skating. Crosby is working on his skating this summer. McDavid is working on his skating this summer. McKinnon, all of these top guys. It's something that it's an easy draft out to say he needs to work on his skating. To me, that doesn't really go deep enough on the analysis. Okay, why does he need to work on his skating? Is his edge work bad? Is his speed bad? Is his explosiveness bad? Does he have poor form on his stride? Go a little deeper than that.
I've heard the whole knock on skating, or like whatever type of knock it is, whatever level you want it to be, whether it's his skating is not very good at all to just his skating is excellent, but it really could use work, like anywhere in between. I have heard that kind of bullet point for almost every single forward that we have named so far, and that includes Connor Bedard.
There are maybe five players in this draft class where I could be like, I'm not worried about your skating at the next level.
Well, right.
Maybe.
But but like you said, it's normal.
Yeah. I don't know. Because I haven't heard people say that it's not fixable, but I have heard people say his skating isn't good. And like the eye test, it kind of shows. He's not a great skater. He's an average to maybe below average skater.
Right.
But as players continue to develop, and when you get your coaches and your right players in place to develop your pipeline, and the Wild have a very good pipeline right now, one of the top 5 prospect pools in the league. When you're surrounded with that much talent and everybody is working that hard to get better, and you're working with these guys who maybe by playing with one of them, you learn something that, I need to change this with my technique. And all of a sudden, I've got a much more explosive first step. Those sorts of things to me can be fixed. I do understand the concerns. I will admit I do have some of them myself, but to me, that's not a red flag to the point where I would be like, I do not want this prospect for that reason. I do think it's fixable. I do think he can develop his skating and will develop his skating and be a solid middle six center. Maybe I don't want to write him on as a 1C. I just don't. But I do think middle six support character. I do think that's the role.
Okay.
Matthew's saying as well, he's not quick and he isn't going to get faster easily. You can be a bad skater and be quick. He isn't. And as a center and someone driving play, you need to have pace. It's my gripe. It may be wrong. And I could be wrong too. I could say that I think it's fixable and it turns out it's not. Anything beyond, top 15, I would say in this class, maybe even top 10, every pick is going to have some risk to it. If you think the upside is worth the risk, you go get your guy. If Judd Brackett and Bill Guerin decide Callum Ritchie is that guy, I trust them. I really do. Because they have continued to impress with these drafts year after year, especially Judd Brackett. Could I see the Wild trading down here? Sure. Knowing that in this upcoming draft, the Wild are looking at 2 picks in the second round, nothing in the third, nothing in the fourth. If they trade down a couple spots to pick up an extra third, I wouldn't hate it. And I do I think it's a realistic trade spot with some guys who are on the board with a lot of upside.
With how deep it is, that's a win-win. I mean, okay, you're not picking at 21, but boo-hoo, maybe you're picking at 26.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm giving Judd Brackett more draft capital to work with because he has 2 players that he likes targeted in every range. Sign me up. Go for it. I will not be surprised at all if the Wild trade down. I did go with Ritchie for this mock, but again, there were 5 other guys, and I mentioned some of them. Gavin Brindley, Charlie Strammel. If by some miracle, a guy like Oliver Moore is there, I would sprint to the podium to take Oliver Moore. I don't think he's going to be there. I would sprint to Moore if Simashev is there. I don't think he's going to be there. When I look at who was the best fit and for me, the most upside there. And Matthew's saying as well, faith in the process, would personally go Shala. Yeah, Shala would be a very good pick here too. And
that's the other consensus I've seen in a lot of
coming
mocks
up later in this mock. I disagree where you say that you're kind of dumb. I have seen your hockey takes and I trust them. I'm not going to say
that. You aren't dumb. I'm dumb.
Also not true, but I like Shala, and looking at how this board fell, I could see that as well. I trust Judd Brackett. I trust the process. You do as well. I'm going to be happy with whoever the Wild walk away with tomorrow night. Just for the purposes of this mock, I thought Ritchie was the one who made the most sense here.
Your guy too. I think I saw I feel like maybe Bill Guerin would love to get a guy like that in your system.
It may be, and I know
we met him.
We did meet Bill Guerin.
We did meet Bill Guerin. He's a nice guy.
Our buddy Seth Topal over at Locked On Wild, he also had Callum Ritchie to Minnesota in this spot. I'm seeing it in a lot of mocks, and that's part of why I didn't want to do it, is just because it feels so like everybody's doing it, so that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But at some point you have to realize too, later in the first round, if people are like, this is an appropriate range for this guy, there's probably some truth to that.
Yeah. Once you get to these later rounds, I mean, it's a deep draft, but again, you're in the 20s now. Like,
If I was looking at a winger for the Wild, I would take the player that I have the Flyers taking at 22 here. Because
I have a fun little nugget about this player too.
As we mentioned earlier, the Flyers we had at number 7, you had at number 7, taking David Reinbacher. So they got their defenseman. So now they look back to the forward group. And playing off of what you did at 7, I went with a forward who I think just screams textbook Philadelphia Flyers draft pick. I went with Colby Barlow, left wing from the Owen Sound Attack of the OHL. Philadelphia gets this pick from the Kings by way of the Blue Jackets in that Provorov deal. Colby Barlow, he seems like such a Flyers pick. He's got such a great shot, very, very physical player. Can he get a little one-dimensional? Sure. But looking at what the Flyers have historically wanted from their wingers, to me, Barlow's that guy.
Dude, I have to throw this in there.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going off of Kevin Weeks, I looked at his mock, and this is why I wanted to throw this nugget in there. The Flyers fans, if this is to be kind of like taken this way, and I trust anything Weeks says, Weeksy had Colby Barlow in his mock going 5th overall to Montreal.
My goodness. Elite Prospects had him 17. He has a lot of upside, and it's because of that shot.
Yeah.
He has a shot that you put up there with your Michkov, with your Fantilli, with your Bedard.
Exactly. And I'll read Weeks' quote directly right now. Like he admits going off the board, but Barlow can score. He uses his size really well. Aside from having Josh Anderson, the Canadians seldom seem to have enough size in the lineup. They've got a lot of young players on the back end with, that size, but smaller players up front. It's tough to pass up a big power forward like Barlow. He can score, has some good wheels, and gets involved on the forecheck too. Like, I saw that and was like, wow. Like, did we just like provide the Flyers with this crazy just gift into their laps? Also, really quick, I promised I would. Shout out to first-time listeners to us, Ryan and Nicole.
There you go. Thank you, Ryan and Nicole, for checking out the show.
Nicole, don't be scared. You said you're scared that I was going to give you a shout-out. It's not like I'm going to say anything embarrassing about you. I totally should, shouldn't I?
Be nice. wait till they're like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th time listeners before.
Oh, then I can start. That's usually when I start ribbing people.
Joel is the one that we have chirped since day one. Nobody else gets that.
Oh, what's up, Ryan?
Oh, there we go. Got through here.
Hello. Ryan's here for the Red Wings comments.
One of my favorite bits with this NHL draft guide from Elite Prospects was that they do player comparisons, and they do it by shades of, is what they said. For Colby Barlow, they said shades of Carter Verhaeghe and shades of a bear.
What?
Not even a hockey player, a bear. That's what he reminds them of.
All right. Cocaine bear?
Let's not go that far. Shots per 60 and expected goals per 60 are on the higher end for this draft class. Tough as nails type of player. Quick release on his shot, whether it's a one touch, a two touch, a one timer, whatever it's going to be. Philly needs a guy like that who is just going to shoot early, shoot often. I think he's a type of player. I think he reminds me a little bit of Bobby Brink, but even bigger and a better skater.
Dude, if the Flyers can come out of the first round somehow with exactly what we gave them, which is Colby Barlow and Reinbacher, they all of a sudden in a couple years aren't this extremely mid team that they are now.
Yeah. And looking at where they're finished this year, mid might be a little generous, but
I mean,
the brutal honesty here.
And there's only so much you can do with
Matthew saying could see Barlow to Nashville, maybe at that 15 spot. Yeah.
I will tell you right now, maybe we have Barlow going too low, but you know what? Whatever. Like that's
and like I said, if the Wild were taking winger, Barlow is the guy I would want for sure.
Yeah.
We are pushing 2 hours on this show, and
we're
3. So let's kind of make a little bit more of a push here. Joel, 23 New York Rangers, who you kind of adopted as a team this year after the Patrick Kane trade.
Well, yeah, back up now. Kaner's going to test free agency, and the New York fan base are a bunch of whiny little morons. Not all of them. 23 overall. I went a little chalk. I have them taking Charlie Stramel.
Yep. And as I said with Minnesota, I wanted him at 21. I just couldn't talk myself into him, but I like the fit a lot with the Rangers.
I'm surprised. I actually am surprised you didn't do that. I mean, you do typically favor college hockey over juniors, and he's at Wisconsin. That's a pretty good program, right?
Yes. In recent years, I will admit that I have skewed a little bit of bias towards the NCAA players in their draft years. And Charlie Stramel, to me, like, he had a very good draft year -1.
Yeah.
Wisconsin was so bad last year. People were saying in their reports on Charlie Stramel, I can't wait to see him play in a team that actually has structure. That is a pretty damning indictment on your team, especially at the college level. Tony Granato was fired at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Stramel going to stay at Wisconsin next year, hopefully in a system that has an actual system to it, has some structure, gives him the tools he needs to develop and get to that next level. 6'3", 222, Stramel, a big center. Yeah. Oh, and of course, I had to mention Mike Hastings as the new head coach with Wisconsin.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it was chalk. Charlie Stramel is a bit. I mean, I think NHL.com had the Rangers taking him. I mean, just based on reading about him a little bit, like, he's got a nice combo of size, skill, and skating. I mean, to me, though, reading it, like, he can finish his checks. He doesn't shy away from contact. He's good, in the hash marks. He'll battle in front of the net. Like, that sounds like kind of Rangers hockey to me right now. The kind of some of their style that they use. Mm-hmm. So combo that with the fact that they aren't going to rush this kid, so they don't need to. So I mean, that's kind of why I decided to go chalk there. But all right, now the Predators getting to pick another one, but this time you picked for him.
Yep. And Matthew, you mentioned earlier in the show Trotz wanting to take a big swing on some guys. And you absolutely nailed who I had them taking. Because they had that second pick, they can feel a little more comfortable taking Andrew Crystal at pick 24. A guy who has, from a raw talent standpoint, might be top 5 talent in this class. Incredible hands, solid shot, but he doesn't contribute nearly as much defensively. His effort can be inconsistent, which, as we talked about, the red flags as you start to get with some of these guys later in the first round. Crystal is the definition of a high-risk, high-reward prospect. The tools are all there, but there is a ton of risk to his game. He can get sloppy with poor puck management. He can get tunnel vision at times. And at 5'9", 175, again, a smaller player, there are a lot of old school scouts and GMs who think if you're under 6 foot, you might as well be 5'6". And if you're 6 foot, you're 6'2". That's like, it's that kind of a divide where if you're smaller than 6 foot, you don't matter. Yeah. Crystal has the tools, he has the skills, but does he have the work ethic and the consistency? Can he find that consistency to put it all together at the next level?
Yeah, I agree. And this is actually another guy that was mentioned of like, oh, maybe at 19. And I was like, I don't really want him at 19. It, like you mentioned, like the skate, you can actually legitimately knock Crystal for he needs to work on his skating. So like, that's just not the direction we're going right now, at least on the Hawks. I've heard it like, oh, we could take him at 19. I'm like, I don't want to take that.
I will say, Elite Prospects did have Crystal at 19 on their board.
I know.
So,
and that's why but I don't personally, I don't want it. I hope I don't think they'll go that way either, because Davidson has gone on record saying like, we're really focusing on like just skating, and this would not fit.
Yeah.
Not that they're in a rush. They're not, but this one just sounds like it'd be too big of a project for skating.
Yeah.
But he could be really good. I know he's one of the biggest jumps. I mean, I've seen him in the middle of the first round all the way down to like the third round.
Yeah, again, and kind of like what we were talking about earlier with Oliver Bonk, where Bonk was ranked between 20 and 84 on the draft boards. When you take a look at where scouts have Andrew Crystal, you are seeing a guy who could be as high as 12, which is where the Hockey News has him. That's where Smart Scouting has him. You could see him as low as 35, where Craig Button has him. He has the tools to be not only a first-round pick, but one of the most gifted talents in this class. There's just a lot of ancillary stuff where can he put it all together? If he can, he will be a draft steal for whoever gets it. And that's why I think Nashville makes a lot of sense here to be that team to take the shot. Joel, I'm going to throw it back over to you at 25, St. Louis. This is the one that you swapped earlier.
Yes, here we go. So this is the one I swapped, and now I've been making fun of his name. Daniil Boot at 25 will be going to the St. Louis Blues. Now, I mentioned why I ended up moving him. For one, and now I said now this might not even be the case based on the Kevin Hayes move, but the Blues, for all intents purposes, I'm pretty sure are in rebuild mode. So they're okay with taking a Russian player, because that's also why I had him sliding down so far. The whole Russian kind of connection we have going here, where they're sliding down a bit, at least in this draft. So I had him slide down to the Blues. But the thing is I know he's 6'5". I am never. How many times do I have to say the height thing never bothers me? And it's such an old boys thing. But 6'5", that's short, man. Like, it's weird to me. Another big thing too here is like I said, the Blues aren't in a rush, at least I think. I'll get to that in a second, but the Blues have been pretty big on, they love taking their Russian players. They currently have some. They'll take another. And like we said, with the whole Russian factor being in there, I could see him being available at 25. This is somewhere where I'd say it's a risk with someone of that height. He's good. He's got some skills with the puck, but like at this point, and maybe this might be on Doug Armstrong, like maybe they're not rebuilding, maybe they're just trying to retool. But then at the same time, you get Daniil Boot in there, like maybe he does become something more for you. You don't have to rush him. And you're not going to be able to rush him at the same time. It's weird. The Blues they're just very weird right now. We're sitting here like they're in a rebuild, but then you see them do this Kevin Hayes thing, and now are they sitting here like trying to think that they're Dallas? Like,
are they thinking they're going to throw it together and compete next year?
Right. And guess what? You don't have a Jake Ottinger. You have a plug in net in Jordan Binnington. That's a big difference between you and Dallas.
We like to say goalies are weird. Binnington is one of the ultimate case studies in that. It just being just an unhinged,
I can't stand
off the wall dude.
This isn't about Jordan Binnington. I don't want to waste time on him.
Yeah,
God, I can't stand
getting back to Daniil Boot here. He has the skills of somebody who, like when you see a forward listed at 5'7", but projected as a first rounder, that's the kind of skill set that Boot has, but he's 6'5". The knock on Daniil Boot is because he is more of a skill guy, is an NHL coach for whichever team takes him going to try and turn him into a power forward or more of a grinder just to get that element out of a guy who is 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
Do they ease up on pushing his skill growth and try and push that physical side of his game, which can he use it? Yes. Has he shown that he likes to use it? Not as much. It's like, will coaches try to change his game? Maybe. I hope not, because I think he does have a really unique, interesting skill set that will be an asset wherever he ends up. I like that you went with Boot here at 25, especially with a team that could, take a few shots, throw some darts in the first round and see what you can do. 26, another guy worth taking a shot on. You had we had Daniil Boot going at 25. Matthew mentioned him at 21 would be good.
Another
26 to the Sharks with their second pick, Edward Shala, another Czech player going in the first round. Again, has a lot of raw talent, but some scouts have said he doesn't appear interested or engaged at times. I like to call it the Randy Moss effect, that I'm going to play when I want to play. If you remember that quote. Shala kind of has some scouts thinking that might be a concern. With the Sharks, where they're looking long-term and not trying to compete within the next 3-4 years,
mm-hmm.
You give Shala some time to continue to round out his game. To me, I wonder if we're getting too nitpicky with Shala.
Well, that's the other. He was also on the board for the Wild, so. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. All right, now 27. The Colorado Avalanche take David Edstrom.
Which, by the way, we should mention as well. Colorado now has 2 first-round picks.
They do now, yes.
Because they picked up 31 later on. So,
yes,
keeping who they had here, 27 Colorado.
Yep. So David Edstrom. David Edstrom, solid player. I know you kind of thought about taking him for Minnesota at 21. And I agreed with you. We were talking about it, that I do hate seeing this guy go to a division rival. He is an analytics darling, so to speak, right? Two-way forward to his core, but with a lot of offensive upside.
His expected goals per 60 and ozone retrievals per 60, showing 2 different assets and aspects of his game.
Yeah.
Really high scores.
Good solid size too, up the middle, 6'3", 185. I guess the only knock could be like he needs to just become a little better of a catch and release type of shooter. But a couple mock drafts actually had him going to the Rangers. So at 23. So
anywhere between 18 and anywhere 18 to 30 is fair game for Edstrom. I think if you're getting him later than 30, it's an absolute steal. But there's a lot to like with Edstrom, and people are going to look at just his numbers. Look at the underlying numbers. You look beyond goals and assists. Edstrom is going to be a good player. He's not going to be a pick that a lot of fans are going to jump out of their seats for. He doesn't have the raw skill of Shala, of Crystal. That's not necessarily his game. He's not a flashy player, but he's a go get the job done type of player, and coaches can't get enough of those guys. So great pick for Colorado, of course, who already has good centers in their system and just traded for one, and then they're adding another. Ship Newhook out, bring Edstrom in, of course. 28, the Toronto Maple Leafs, a pick that they got from Boston by way of the Capitals. I look at a Maple Leafs team that has all sorts of offensive upside, and I thought maybe do they go defense here? And I did have them going with a defenseman, but also an offensive defenseman in Etienne Morin, who
more defensemen.
yeah, more defenseman. The player comparisons I've seen diet Evan Bouchard, like he's a smaller Evan Bouchard. That's his type of game. To me, he also reminds me of if we could get Kalen Addison more engaged. Like he has a ton of offensive upside, still raw on the defensive end, but I like Morin a lot. I think he's the type of player that historically the Leafs would draft for their defense. His big knock on him is gap control. I could see them, adding some center depth here, especially if they can get like a two-way type of center. I think if Edstrom is still on the board, that's a pick that would be a really good fit. To me, it was Morin just so that they could get a defenseman, but it's an offensive defenseman.
Yep.
He's going to leave.
Yep. Now
the Blues again.
The third pick.
29. Are you getting sick of talking about the Blues yet?
Yeah, extremely. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time
at the first time we talked about it. So
I was sick of them when they, became a team. But yes, at 29, with the third first-round pick they have, they are taking defenseman Tanner Melendick from the Saskatoon Blades. The only notes I'll give quick notes on him super fast. Just, he has solid breakout play. He's got elite zone entry, denial. He's a very good skater. He's great in the neutral zone.
He's the guy that the Leafs should take at 28 and then will regret years later because you need the shutdown D-man.
Yeah. And I've talked about it now for two other picks. The Blues need to bolster up their defensive prospects or their defensive prospect pool. So this to me makes sense, taking two defensemen in the first round for them. And I guess it wouldn't even surprise me anyway. Again, like I said, I don't know what the hell their direction is. So bolster up your defensive pool while taking a forward at some point too. Here's the one quick thing now that we're done with the Blues, and then we'll move on to number 30. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Blues make all three of their picks.
That's fair. I could see a trade back in the cards.
Dude, based on the Kevin Hayes thing, I wouldn't be surprised if they traded 10 for some pretty established player, and then they're just like, all right, we're Dallas now. Let's go.
Yeah, maybe they move 25 and 29 to move back up into the teens. Early teens at that, maybe move up to 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there, because you can move two firsts going back the other way, given that they're later firsts. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. Number 30, Carolina Hurricanes. I had them going Bradley Nadeau. Put up just a monster year at the BCHL level. One of the best shooters in the class, but average skater, not great. Again, things that I think are coachable and teachable. But for a guy who on draft day is listed at 5'10", 161, you want a little more speed out of that guy to trust him. But I think the shot speaks for itself. He had, I think, 85 points this year in the BCHL. He's going to continue to produce. It's a bit more of a project, but late first round, you're looking at guys who aren't going to be on your roster actively in 2 years anyway, barring great development. And I think Nadeau will develop. I think he's going to be a good fit for Carolina. And what killed Carolina in the playoffs this year? Not being able to get enough pucks in the net. The defense was there. The goaltending was there. You got to have somebody who can put pucks in the net. Nadeau, to me, is that guy.
And this is the one other only time we did back-to-back. You took 31, so I could then take the Vegas pick.
Yeah, you were wearing the Vegas hat earlier in the show. I had to give you Vegas. We'll let you close out. So you bookend our draft with the first and the 32nd pick. At number 31, because and only because they picked up this extra pick, I have the Colorado Avalanche taking a goaltender in the first round. I have them going with Michael Hrabal from the Omaha Lancers.
I actually really like this pick, especially now that it's the Avalanche's pick. I know I don't think a goal. I still will stick by my guns. I don't think a goalie's going to go in the first round, but if it's going to happen, it happens right here.
Yeah, late first round, you already had your pick where you could address your, I guess if you want to call it, big need. Colorado has been hammering, trying to build out their center depth. You lost out on Kadri. They traded for Ryan Johansson. They moved Newhook because they're trying to create some sort of a lane for people in the center group. So they got their center at 27. But looking at that goaltending pipeline, I don't have a lot of faith in Trent Miner. Pavel Francouz isn't going to be around with Colorado too much longer. And when I look at a goaltender who is 6'7" at 18, dude is just a Goliath netminder, but he also doesn't have the clunky movements that you would expect of someone who is 6'7" at 18 years and still trying to figure all of that out and put it all together. Really good goaltender. The goals against on the year was over 3. Throw that out the window. Look at his technical play. Look at the way that he squares up to the pucks. Look at his movement. Solid save percentage across his shot map. If there is a goalie who goes in the first round, Michael Hrabal would be that guy. And I think Colorado can afford to take a shot there. Joel, you're going to hate this. Matthew's saying St. Louis uses their firsts to get DeBrincat or Keller. DeBrincat in St. Louis would make Joel want to jump off the top of the arch into the arms of Connor Bedard, who is waiting for him at the bottom of the arch.
Yeah, I'll just cry in the arms of Connor Bedard at that point. That's fine.
Yeah. So we go with Hrabal at 31. Joel, our last pick. We have made it. We're 2 hours, 15 minutes into this thing.
Whoever stuck with us for this entire 2 hours, we love you.
Yeah, Matthew in particular. You've been here and you've been commenting throughout the whole show. You were one of the first commenters we had.
He's a P1.
Been with us from the jump, and we really appreciate that.
So, yes, at the final pick of the first ever Pod Snipe Celly Mock Draft, the defending Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights select Gavin Brindley.
I had a feeling when we were getting to the end of the first round that this was where you were going to go with this pick. And I was kind of hoping that maybe, he's available early second. Somebody trades up. Maybe the Wild move their 2 second-round picks. They move back up. And somebody's going to go get Gavin Brindley in the first round. I do think he is a first-round pick.
That's the thing. I think the biggest thing here is at 32, he's too good to pass up right here. He just, quite frankly, he could go a little earlier. Maybe he could drop into the second. I would love for him to drop to, where are we at? I think we're at 35, right? I think we're at 35 in the second round, somewhere around there.
Yeah, that's the Hawks' first pick in the second round. Is 35.
Yeah, so I'd love to see him drop just a couple spots there to 35. That'd be beautiful, especially if we can't get that center up at 19. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing. He's, like I said, he's a little too good to pass up. He's an every situation player. He's a good skater. Huge compete level. That's one of the biggest things. He kind of thrives off his motor from everything that I've kind of read. A lot of mocks had him going 29 to the Blues. I've seen him going 27 to Colorado. But the thing here is you can be patient with him. And what team has the most patience than the defending Stanley Cup champs? Mm-hmm. And they're already deep at center. They're deep at winger, right? They're deep everywhere, obviously. So having Gavin Brindley just waiting in the wings, maybe a couple years down the road, I just, the rich kind of get richer at that point to me, especially if he drops down to 32. But yeah, I'd agree. I'd love to see him fall a little further to 35. Nice, solid center to pick up in the second round. That is really first round talent, but might fall anyway. So I love it. He's got to beef up just a little bit. He's a little small at 5'8", 168. So little on the small side. Again, we've talked about it. It's been a huge theme with the forwards, but we don't really care. That's the style. And that, Dan, concludes the Snipe Celly mock draft.
It sure does.
And 2 hours and 19 minutes.
A thank you to everybody who stayed with us, and a thank you to BetStamp as well for allowing us to put together this ridiculous, fun endeavor of creating a first-round mock draft and doing it live, discussing, analyzing our picks on here. So thank you to BetStamp for sponsoring Snipe Celly. Go to signupexpert.com/Snipe Celly. You can download their free betting app. You can start shopping lines to put more money in your pocket. You can sign up for sportsbooks through that link as well if you are in a state where sports betting is legal. Our friends north of the border in Canada as well. If sports betting is legal where you're at, that same link will work.
And don't worry, it will be everywhere soon enough.
It helps us out if you are signing up for sportsbooks and downloading the app. It helps them out, allows us to keep producing awesome content to send your way. Go give BetStamp some love. We have showcased them a lot on the show already with what their odds shopping software can do. And if you're serious about your sports betting as well, you can make about $1,000 more a year just by being smart with how you're shopping lines. BetStamp, a fantastic, phenomenal tool. You should add it to your betting arsenal. But that is it for tonight's show. Thank you, BetStamp. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Joel, thank you for deep diving prospects this year, far more than I think you've done any other year that
ever. But I mean, this was the draft to do it. This one, I definitely want to do it more. It's fun, but if there was ever a draft to really start deep diving into prospects, it's definitely this one. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, well, I will let you go. We have carried this show on long enough. He's Joel. I'm Dan. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us.
Happy Bedard Day to all those who celebrate.
I was going to say happy draft day, and you had to go ruin it with Bedard Day. Good night, everybody.
Woo.